it's one thing to start a business and have it maybe as a hobby, and another thing to have it as replacing your income and replacing a full-time job. And you have to be really passionate about it because it's going to be your everyday, all day, 24/7.
So how long have you been like in a business advisory role for?
Since 2013.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not yesterday.
No,
See?
it's been 10 years, which is crazy to me.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Happy
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah, so I was at a center called PTAC
Yes.
beforehand, and which is now Apex, and I moved here in 2019.
Wow. So you've been here for 4 years.
Yeah, almost 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
Let's go.
I know.
How many, this is impossible for you to answer. How many people do you think that you have counseled
Oh,
in 10 years?
I don't know. I don't know. I could probably pull up the figure
Right.
here. Sarah could probably pull it up. But for PTAC, I'm sure it's like at least in the hundreds.
Right.
High
Right.
hundreds, I'm sure.
Easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, in here, did you come in as the assistant director?
No, I was a business advisor.
Let's
and then-
go. That's a really cool thing about both you and Erica, the director, is that you've both been in the trenches, not even just generally like in the field, but in the office.
Yeah.
And then earned your way and worked your way up.
Yeah, that's important because you want to know what the community is actually facing, what the businesses, the issues that they face, so that you can speak intelligently about the community you're serving.
You've worked with a lot of people that are in the business of trying to get into business.
Yes.
Or that are already in business that are trying to grow, expand, survive,
Yes.
depending on the situation. In that time frame and with that number of people, have you been able to get an idea of like consistent characteristics that people show, or even just actions or mindsets? Does anything stood out to you as consistent from person to person, from the people that seem to kind of break through and actually get that business started and make their first sale? Is there any sort of consistency that you see there?
Yeah, definitely having a passion for what you want to do. Because it's one thing to start a business and have it maybe as a hobby, and another thing to have it as replacing your income and replacing a full-time job. And you have to be really passionate about it because it's going to be your everyday, all day, 24/7.
Yes.
Having your own business, you can have a more flexible work schedule. You can create your own hours, you be your own boss, but that also is going to be still a 24/7 endeavor. So you have to be passionate about what you want to do.
Yeah. Well, it's this interesting thing that I think that I just read a survey that asked people who were entrepreneurs or interested in becoming entrepreneurs or business owners, what are the top reasons for you wanting to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And it was mostly like, if you were to sum it up in one word, it was freedom. It was like, I want to be able to control my schedule. I want to be able to do what I like to do. I want the freedom to pursue those things on my time to the extent, that makes sense. Well, it's interesting though, because you said it's 24/7, which is spot on, because if you're working for another business and you're even like the tactician, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you're the technician and you are an expert in, I don't know, maybe you're that lead chef. You're like, I could run this restaurant so much better. And you go home every day kind of thinking that, but every day you go home, you get to hang your apron up,
Exactly.
and go and just relax and not think about anything because the payroll isn't on your mind. All, the menu changes, the marketing, the bookkeeping, all of that, that's not on you.
Right.
And so there's a fair amount of maybe unexpected stress that comes with it. Is there, for the people that have actually opened the doors, what have you seen that kind of response be like? How do people respond? And when people are responding, what are kind of like the successful ones doing versus the people that end up shutting their doors. I know some of
Yeah.
it's out of their control, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, to be successful, you have to have a lot of different skills. And some people have their strengths and weaknesses, right? And so it's really important to understand where your strengths lie and where your weaknesses lie and build a team around that. So planning and organizing, marketing, budgeting, customer service. You know, you start a business because you want freedom, but you're also beholden to your customers and you want your customers to come back. So you need to have excellent customer service as a small business, right? You want your customers to come back. So building a team around those skills is very important. So maybe you're really passionate about marketing or you're really great at budgeting, but you're not great at the customer service side, or maybe you're not great at planning and organizing. That's where you need to bring people in, bring an accountant in, bring in an attorney, or maybe if you're not great at marketing, bring in a marketer to help you with those skills. But you don't have to do everything on your own. It's really important to build a team and have a team in place, because if you're not great at budgeting and all of the financial side, you still have to pay your taxes and all the things that you want to keep your doors open. So you need to have the people in place to help you with that.
Yeah. No, I think that's crucial. I was just talking with Troy actually about having a series that's about that specifically, about like putting the business team together.
Yeah.
And so I think we're definitely going to do that.
Yeah.
Because it is so critical. And even just at the base fundamental level, there is something that I think that you and I have discussed before offline, where you still need, even with those bringing other people in, I think that can be a hard part. I'm going to derail my own comment that I was going to make. So I think that there's an important part when I think about the spirit of an entrepreneur, or things you have to consider or be aware of, is delegation, which is, I think, the kind of the whole point you're making. But when you think about it from like a personality level, when we're starting, almost everybody starts in a sense as like a solopreneur, like you're on your own, individual, like just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then you start putting your team together and you start to grow. You start to look for finances. I'm trying to start a restaurant. There's a lot to it. It can be hard to because it's like your baby.
Yeah, you're
You know?
passionate about it. Like that's why you did this,
And
right?
and so it's
you
like
want
this,
to do everything,
right? There's like this catch-22. It's like you have to have the passion for it, but you also need to be able to delegate. How do you have any ideas or thoughts about like managing that balance between those? Like how do you select what you're going to outsource? Is it just by skill, or is it by interest? Is it a combination of these things? Like how do we determine like what am I going to bring somebody else to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and this will be future episodes, right? We're going to be talking about a business plan.
Yes.
Business planning is such an important part of this whole process. And part of the business plan is a SWOT analysis, which is strengths and weaknesses, right? And looking at your business strengths and weaknesses, but also personally, you know, what do you feel like you're so excited about? What do you want to accomplish? And what are the things that make you nervous or unsure about? And those are, at least in the beginning, is where you're going to say, maybe I should bring this person in as a consultant, or this person as a consultant to help with those aspects.
I can imagine one of the hardest things to do is to identify those strengths and weaknesses, and to be introspective and vulnerable even with yourself in order to get that. Do you have any sort of practices or any thoughts about times or strategies to get that from yourself?
Again, like the business plan will be really important because you're outlining all of the operations of the business. You're outlining your marketing strategy. You're doing the financial planning. So as you're outlining the business, you're going to see where you're maybe struggling, right? Where you're having some issues, and talking to your SBDC advisor, having a support team, right? And it doesn't have to be paid consultants. It can be friends, family, and talk to them and understand the aspects of the business that you may need help with. Your friends and family know you best. You could also be talking to people in the industry you want to enter. See how they run their businesses, who's successful, and what are they doing. And maybe you can understand from that perspective who you may need to bring on.
Yeah, that's somebody who's interested, it seems like there has to, you don't necessarily have to be an extrovert, and that might be a preconceived notion that people have, because the things that we would recommend, I think, fairly consistently for almost anybody is you need to get out there and talk to people.
Yeah.
Like, you need to get into groups. You said it perfectly with both groups that you need to be talking to. And it's find out where the people that are going to be paying you for your services or goods, where are they?
Yeah.
And what are they talking about? And how can you enter into that conversation, which we just did a webinar on not that long ago. And we'll probably do another one. And then at the same time, you got to find those kind of professional networking events. And it would be interesting, you know, I think it'd be fun to do an episode where we talked about like keys for an introvert to maximize those events.
Yeah.
Because that can be a struggle, and it is crucial. I hope that people can take away from this is that it's not, there aren't hard line, like if you don't have this character strength, or if you don't have, you know, these personality traits, then like good
Right.
luck. Given there are going to be some in every business, there's going to be some strengths that really help, and other ones that you have to like build.
Yeah.
You know?
So my dad owned a painting company by himself, totally solo entrepreneur.
My man.
Built a very successful business, and he would bring receipts in a Ziploc bag to his accountant. That's how he did business. Things were written down on pieces of paper, and he had the receipts, and that was what he brought. And he was really successful because he was personable and people loved him. He was dependable, did great work. The planning and organizing was not there.
Yeah, that's a great insight, because he's successful because of the way that he built relationships like with his customers, and obviously the quality work. And then you don't want to invest a serious amount of time, you know, in accounting and all of
Right.
that. Like that is not going to be like income producing activity for him or his business.
Right.
And it's going to take away from that. And to your passion point, that can reduce the passion. That can, if it's like a gas tank,
Right.
like it's like you're puncturing it with like a screwdriver and you're just watching it drain out because you're spending so much time doing things that just
Yeah.
don't get you jazzed up about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so hard because like you have to enter into it. I'm curious about your thoughts on this. So there's a thought that I've heard from a lot of business owners that have been successful, that they say, like, how did you do? And they're like, well, if I had to do it again, I wouldn't. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, no, it was dumb, young, blind optimism and not knowing what the struggles were going to be.
Yeah.
And so there's a part of it when I'm talking about it now where I'm like, I don't want to tell anybody. Be blindly optimistic, you know, go for it. But at the same time, you should really be aware that there are going to be struggles, and the passion is good to get you off the ground.
Yes.
But you have to find ways to sustain that energy level.
Right. The passion is the foundation.
Yes.
And then everything else, you have to see, you know, what brings you joy and what brings you energy and what drains that, and where you need to bring people in to help you. Yeah. And just to,
That there are going to be struggles, and the passion is good to get you off the ground.
yes.
But you have to find ways to sustain that energy level.
Right. The passion is the foundation.
Yes.
And then everything else, you have to see, you know, what brings you joy and what brings you energy and what drains that, and where you need to bring people in to help you. Yeah. And just to build on your point before about, you know, understanding if you are an introvert and networking makes you nervous, you know, you don't have to, in the beginning at least, go into these big networking rooms and big groups. You know, you can go and meet with a competitor or a future competitor, someone in your industry, you know, just knock on their door. That's not an easy thing to do, but it doesn't have to be these big rooms where you're networking and wheeling and dealing. And, you know, you can go straight to someone, you know, individually and ask them questions.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that technology has made that a lot easier too.
Right.
Like you have the ability to direct message people, and you don't have to go for like the Mark Cubans or whoever.
Right.
Like find that person local in your area that's in the same industry as you, and reach out to them as almost somebody seeking mentorship
Right.
and putting them in the position of like acknowledging their skill and their experience and you wanting to kind of learn from the best and you admire the way that they do business.
And to take it a step further, if you really don't want to talk to someone, a lot of stuff now is online.
That's true.
You can, if you're interested in understanding how to market better, look at your competitors and what are they doing on social media? How does their website look?
Yep.
What groups are they a part of? Right? These are all things you could probably find online that you don't even have to talk to anyone.
Yeah, that's true. Like you can do a lot of that research yourself. And that goes to another component of the entrepreneurial spirit. Or some of the baseline things that I think you have to have regardless is you have to have the passion, right? That's got to be there. And the passion, I've seen people be successful in business that weren't passionate about that business, but were passionate about something that drove them to get into a business, right? So there's got to be passion from somewhere. But another thing is you have to be resourceful. Like, I think that's a non-negotiable.
Yes.
When it makes me just think about your dad, like in that. And so being a solopreneur, like did you ever see or experience that, like him being resourceful or like have any recollections of that?
Yeah, I mean, he would tell me, when he came here when he was 20 something years old with literally $5 in his pocket. He had enough money to take the subway to Astoria because he's Greek, so that's where you land when you're Greek. And he stayed in someone's apartment, right, and slept on their floor. And the next day, he got a job with a painting company. Wow. Someone he knew had this painting company, and he got a job, as a day laborer, right, painting. And then he got enough money to buy a ladder and a paintbrush, and then got enough money to buy a car.
Wow.
Right. And so piece by piece. And that's sometimes it's okay that you're not growing exponentially in the first year. It's impossible for most businesses to see that type of growth. It's okay to start out slow. If you want a storefront, maybe sell out of your home first.
Right.
And then get enough money to get the storefront. Right.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be all at once. And it shouldn't be all at once because that can be really scary too.
Yeah, that's hard to manage. It's kind of the same story as somebody who wins the lottery, right? Like if your business had as much success as like winning maybe even a smaller lottery would give you, like, oh, you had $1 million. Like, oh, I can't believe I started this painting business and I happened to know a guy that was in contracts and he was able to get me this contract and it was $1 million. Well, have you learned and understand how to manage like $10,000 problems, like $50,000 problems? Like there's several zeros of problems of like understanding the resources and everything that are there, that a natural path of growth is going to benefit you.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so it's okay and advisable to start off slow and steady.
Yes.
So definitely that's something I recommend, especially, when I work with businesses and government contracting, and everyone wants that $1 million contract. But like you said, there are problems and a lot of things you have to think about from getting from 0 to $1 million. Yeah. Right. Insurance.
Sounds like a dream, but it can easily turn into a nightmare.
Right. Right. The financing aspect of it, knowing that with a government contract, you're not paid right away. Yeah. Right? How are you going to finance that $1 million contract? How are you going to hire the people you need to hire?
I think you just shook a lot of people that are interested in
I know.
Like, what do you mean you don't get paid right away? Like, yeah. That's real. We're going to dive into that.
Yes. Another time.
Another time. Full or super deep into the procurement lane.
Right. But as advisors, we want to be your cheerleader as a business, but we also want to be the reality-based advisement as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting place I've found myself in a couple of times where you always bring value, you always bring the information and the resources and guide them kind of, business owners where they need to go. But at the same time, I try to, there's like a psychological component to it where you're looking like, what do you need? Like sometimes people have their whole family and all of their friends kind of like laughing and snickering and you can feel it when they come in and they're like, oh, nobody's got my back, but this is my dream and it's my passion. I'm like, I am your cheerleader. I got you. Here are the resources. This is how we can help you to get it done. Yeah. The onus is always on the business owner, of course. But then there's other ones that are like, they're real lofty.
Yes.
And that's good to have great big dreams. But that's where we can be the reality check.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like,
And
here's-
those dreams may be 5 years down the
Yeah.
road, right? Doesn't have to be right away.
Yes.
How do we get there?
Yes. The one thing I wanted to pick up from your story again, it just ties back in from the story of your father and how he built his way.
I think about him all the time,
Yeah.
like as someone who works in the government contracting space, like you have to be so organized. And my dad is a great painter. He's still painting. He's 90.
Oh my gosh.
But that skill,
Yeah.
he just would need to hire someone.
Yep.
Or,
Yep.
just
Like
avoid
I will
it.
work
Like,
on the team that goes, but I need someone to manage the government contract side.
yes,
Yeah.
right. Be like that organization is just not there. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear that. I hear that. The thing that I really liked about how he was the kind of that initial first step, like how was he able to break through anything and do anything with $5 in his pocket, sleeping at a friend's place, is it was somebody he knew.
Right.
Like, so going back into like the networking piece, it's your network. I always like to refer to these as like warm leads or warm networking, people, rather than reaching out to somebody that you don't know at all. Something that you can do is literally go through your phone and just scroll through and look at, I can't believe the number of people I have on my phone. I don't even know who half of them are anymore because they're all people I picked up in the military over time. You go out on temporary duty for a couple months and you're like, you're best friends with somebody, like, oh, we clicked and connected and this is great. And you go through, I'm like, who's Rebecca?
Right. Right.
Don't remember. San Antonio? I don't know.
Yeah.
But you can do that and go through your phone for the people that you do remember who they are. Most people, I assume, aren't in the same space with their phone as me. So, but you use that as a place to start kind of warm, and you start letting people kind of know, like, hey, I'm going to be doing this.
Right.
I'm looking at that, and then you're opening up the avenues for communication with you about it. Like, oh, my brother owns a restaurant. Like, did you guys never met, did you? Like, no, that would be interesting.
Right.
How nice. I'd love to meet him.
Yeah. And that's a really important point, is like building your network from the people you know. It could be friends and family. It doesn't have to be the people you meet on, at networking groups or on LinkedIn.
Yep.
So yeah, knowing who's in your network and seeing who knows who and reaching out to those people is really important.
You're more connected than you realize you are.
Yes.
I think is a big takeaway.
So I'm actually going to jump in really quick.
Yeah.
I made sure I'm on.
Yes.
So very similar story. My grandfather came off the boat from Italy. Same thing. $5 in his pocket. His network owned a company, painting company, marketed all around Glen Cove. He's like the mayor there now. Still alive, still kicking. His networking was my uncle, who he hired as an apprentice painter. And my uncle was in high school. So what better marketing than a high school student being like, you need your house painted, your mom wants painting done?
Right.
And that's family, right? And I mean,
that's
so five kids that he has. That's easy marketing. It's free.
I can't
Free.
believe we didn't even think to touch on that component of the networking and everything, in that it's not just the fellow professionals that can help you, like, oh, here's a job, but it's potential clients.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to
Right.
like look and turn your people into like, oh yeah, I could sell my brother on,
Yeah.
like, but you want to be able, they don't know. This happened to me with public speaking. Like, though nobody in my family knew that I was doing that.
Right.
And I didn't really advertise it. And then, people found out and they're like, oh, I didn't know. Like, we had this event coming up. And I'm like, oh, do you really?
Right.
How much did I just hold myself back by not looking at friends and family for that side of the networking too? That's another great story. We have some of that in the family too.
Yeah.
from the dollars in the pockets. That's oh my gosh, we could do a whole like very patriotic podcast.
Right.
Oof.
American
So-
dream.
Yeah.
People still
the
do
true
it.
American dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had somebody on my own podcast that was he was from Romania and he came over, and he's like, I don't know, maybe 40. He came over and he had $200 in his pocket, and he had his brother that had already lived here, and so he went and crashed it in his like studio apartment, and eventually now he's a public speaker on the tour. He's like, I lived out the American dream to the fullest. I got the job. I got promoted through the job. He's like some sort of electric engineer or mechanical engineer, some sort of like really smart engineer guy. This is how smart I am.
Yeah.
And he just crushed it. And he's like, oh, this is so empty and hollow. Like, if this is the dream, then I don't want this dream. And so he's like, I want to do, and went back to that same thing that we were talking about before. Like, what's the answer? Why do you want to be an entrepreneur?
Right.
Freedom. You want the freedom to pursue your passions and to make money helping people to live a better life or have a better experience.
Yeah.
Eat some of the greatest food. That's one of the beautiful things about New York is that the number of people that have come over and have brought their culture, and it's not as diluted as it is in other places. You have like straight off the boat immigrants that are like, here's like the family recipe that we've made and now it's in this restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And if you don't have the dream, you don't have the passion, you don't have that to go with, and you don't leverage the network and you don't leverage your strengths, then there are people on the other side that are just waiting for you as the entrepreneur to take the step.
Right.
Take that step, take the next action, and like, I don't know, make me your spaghetti and meatballs because I want to eat it.
Yeah. And there are people on your side that are here to help you, like advisors, accountants, attorneys. You could build a team out, your friends and family that are there to support you as you move forward.
Yep. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. You're a rock star.